This is the Soul-Filled Sisterhood podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, a licensed marriage and family therapist and a soul-led leadership coach to women in midlife who are wanting more meaning in the second half. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute, nor is it to convey professional, psychological, financial, or medical advice. If you could use such services, please seek them out from someone you trust. Episode 148. Have you ever wondered what your inner power may look like as an animal? Well, head over to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/quiz and you can find out. It's just a quick 2-minute quiz that I created for you. This is a topic that comes up so often in my coaching work with women where they stand in their power and feeling empowered. And so you can head over there, NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/quiz and check this quick little thing out for you. And if you want more tips and information, you can just sign up after you take the quiz. Well, ladies, before I dive into today's episode, I just want to give you a heads up. I had said originally that I was going to be pivoting kind of my niche area, and I've had some feedback from some of my clients who are like, hey, they really chose me because I understand being a highly sensitive person, being ambitious, and being a change maker, but also being an introvert. So just so you know, you're going to see my new web copy is up, and I've made some changes there where we talk quite a bit about people pleasing and perfectionism and performing, and how it's time to really kind of shift from more of that younger kind of mindset where you're just trying to self-preserve and really growing and be more spiritually awakened. So if you're curious, go out to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com and you can see the new updated website and the information there. And also know that the podcasts going forward for now are going to be about every other week or maybe about twice a month. We got a new puppy a few weeks ago, and wow, I forgot how much time and energy it takes in raising a puppy, plus seeing clients as well with my other businesses. So I'm going to scale back a little bit on how many episodes per month, just so I can keep taking care of me, but providing some really good topics, some conversation, and go from there. And here is today's episode. Well, welcome, sisters. Oh my goodness, my next guest, I have been looking forward to having this conversation with her for a while now, because I think this is a common theme I hear from some of my clients. Today's guest is Lynn Catalano, and she is a licensed attorney in New York State, but chose to pursue other opportunities. The chance to build a new hospital foundation emerged, and her fundraising career was born. After 16 years building that foundation, she went on to large community foundation, assisting donors to become the architect of their legacy. Lynn realized she missed the gratification of local philanthropy in her community and assisting the needs of other hospital foundations. Today, she has pivoted to speak to groups of all sizes to share experiences and help people rise above the chaos. And we know as the introverts and the highly sensitive folks, that is one thing we often like to try and get above because it is very chaotic out there. And Lynn loves to share stories about great leaders and toxic bosses. Lynn loves spending time with her family, traveling, and antique hunting and playing bananagrams. So, Lynn, I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
So, Lynn, can you share a little bit with my listeners? I just read through, your bio of kind of your past work experience, but what really got you into wanting to speak, and especially about toxic bosses and the narcissism that comes with sometimes we see in the bosses that we are working for?
Sure. Well, for me, I've been in organizational leadership for more than 20 years. I'm an attorney by education, and certainly I've met lots of different people. I've worked for a whole variety of people throughout my career. Mm-hmm. But I grew up with a father who is a narcissist, and I didn't know it until my mother passed away quite suddenly 11 years ago.
Okay.
What that caused was for me to search for answers, for me to do a lot of research. I just didn't know what was happening. And I felt like life was very much out of control, and I just didn't have any answers. And what I then discovered, was that he was definitely a narcissist. And that has provoked me into writing a book.
Mm-hmm.
While I'm writing a book, I'm realizing, what do narcissists look like in the workplace?
Uh-huh.
Oh, those are toxic bosses. I see it now. And, I know you're a marriage and family therapist as well, counselor. And so I know the signs of a narcissist, and how they present themselves in the workplace is interesting because it's shared characteristics. There's a lot of similarities, but the things that they do are unbelievable and very detrimental to employees, and it causes undue amounts of stress and both physical and mental and emotional. And I really think people need to be able to identify what's happening and that it's not normal and it's not right. And that there are solutions other than the first solution I always give is, please leave the situation, right? Like, leave that workplace. But sometimes you can't leave. And so that's what I came up with, some solutions to help people. And so that's how I started speaking about those topics. I found that I've been speaking for more than 20 years for my career. And that was what I really loved. That's the part that I loved. So that's how I got to where I am today.
Beautiful. Well, and it's a great way to help. And we're going to get into the signs in just a second here, but just being able to get the message out more and more, because people don't know what they don't know. And it really isn't uncommon for folks to say, hey, I don't understand, but I'm feeling like I'm wrong all the time, or like I'm doubting myself more often. And really where that comes from can be the person that you're working for, who is belittling you or just making you think like you don't know what you're doing, because it can be so critical for your work. Yeah. So, yeah. Yes. I'm curious, you had said, you really started to look into this after your mom had died 11 years ago. Was there something that was specific that kind of started to come to surface for you?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And would you mind sharing? And if not, that's okay too, if you don't want to share.
No, absolutely. His behavior was erratic. And the things that I now know that my mother was the translator, the mediator, the facilitator, the connector, the communicator between us. I now know that she both enabled and provided that necessary narcissistic supply for him, which allowed him to behave sort of normally. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
And what I learned was that once that supply was gone, that's when his erratic behavior rose to the surface.
Yeah.
And that left me, he made decisions that were questionable. He forgot about me. I'm an only child, by the way, and I was 39 when my mother died. So please, I was not a child. I had a family of my own,
right?
But it was
still your parents,
right?
Yeah.
Right, and it's startling, And I think that I saw him through my mother's eyes. And I saw the person that she wanted me to see.
Yeah.
And so without her there, it's like, the smoke and mirrors are gone. And that was really when our difficulties began.
Yeah.
We've been on quite a roller coaster. First it was about his life choices, and he felt that waiting a year after my mother died was the appropriate amount of time to date, which I said, good for you, but please don't expect me to become part of some new family, because I'm still grieving my mom. And he was not capable of respecting that in the slightest. So, that's when the hijinks ensue,
Yeah. Yeah.
I can laugh about it now, but I will tell you, it has been a very rocky, painful 11 years.
Well, yeah, because you're grieving the loss of your mom and then really grieving the loss of the dad that you had saw, as you said, like from your mom's perspective. Because
Correct.
this new person that's showing up, you're like, I don't know this person.
Yes.
Yeah, and then to become invisible with here's my boundaries and like, nope, I'm just going to stomp all over those. It's like, man,
Yep.
ouch.
Yep.
Yeah, for
That was
sure.
it. And then, so that was really the first, I'd say the first 4 years or so.
Hmm.
It was very erratic and very strange. And like, we didn't know how to communicate with one another. And that was evident
Hmm.
because, he couldn't tell me he can't express his feelings. He can't tell me what's happening.
Hmm.
He can't see my side or my
Hmm.
perspective ever. And that's a true narcissist.
Yep.
And then 4 years into it, he did something that I'd like to say I've recovered and I'm over it, but I'm probably not over it. And that's really the drive behind the book. But
Hmm.
um, he began competing with me professionally.
Oh,
Um, yeah. And like here you would expect your parent, and this was my naive expectation because my
hmm.
mother expressed undying emotional privilege to me.
Uh-huh.
She put me first all the time. So I was asked to be on a volunteer board of directors for a hospital.
Hmm.
And I told him the I had left a job and I started a new job. And the old job wanted to honor me at their annual event. And then I had been asked to be on this board of directors. So I
Uh-huh.
told him naively, thinking he would be proud of me. And he went to the CEO of the hospital and said to them, "Why would you pick Lynn when I'm available?"
Oh my gosh.
And I just it felt Shakespearean. It felt
Yeah.
I just can't explain how hurt. And
Well, it's a
I
betrayal. I mean, that's a
oh
total direct sabotage.
yeah.
Wow.
And the CEO was a friend of mine, so he came to me and said, "Look, I got to tell you something. This has been bothering me." And then this poor innocent man is involved in this drama that is my life.
Hmm.
And my father did everything a typical narcissist does. First, he said it was a misinterpretation. Then he said it was a joke,
Hmm.
because with narcissists, it's always a joke,
It's
right?
called gaslighting. Hmm.
Correct. And then he said it was the guy asked him for his resume, to
Hmm.
which, of course, I went back to my friend and I said, "Did any of this happen?" And he said, "No, no, and no."
Uh-huh.
And my father clings to that. Now it's 6 years later. My father clings to the fact that he asked him for his resume. If you asked him today, he'd tell you that.
Uh-huh.
So I thought we went 3 years silent treatment. He would not speak to me.
Hmm.
He never came to the event where they honored me, of course not.
Hmm.
And I thought we were in a better place. And I was just last week, I'm chairman of this very large golf tournament. And we had the awards ceremony yesterday afternoon. And
Hmm.
my father's at the tournament the whole time. And we're on good terms, or so I think.
Right.
And the award ceremony comes, he left before I spoke. How's that?
Wow.
How's that?
Yeah.
So I didn't mean for this to be a therapy session.
No, no, no. But I mean, it gives people kind of a true understanding. Like you have experienced this directly, like so many of the folks that I know too who have. And it's like this is what it can manifest. And so let's
Yeah.
switch just a touch and go. Can you give a little more like signs of what a narcissistic boss then can look like? So that's what it can look like as a parent, which is it's very
Yeah.
hurtful and it's confusing because you're like, I don't understand what's going on, and it's so not about you. I mean, it really is personality traits that have occurred, and it's their wounding of that. They just put it out on everybody else. Unless you say yes all the time and agree with them all the time, there's often
Yep.
that split because
Yes.
somehow you're against them and you're like, no, I'm just separate from you and I have
Correct.
different ideas than you do.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now in the workplace, they're very similar.
Okay.
So toxic bosses like to micromanage everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually know how they do it because they are keeping track of everyone's job. It must be exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
Like they say things to you. Now you're an expert in whatever your field is, and they've hired you, but they cannot trust you. They have no trust.
Yep.
So they don't delegate anything. They tell you task-wise what to do, and then they check on you 100 times like
Mm-hmm.
you're a child.
Yes.
So that's
I've had
number
a few
one.
of those. Mm-hmm.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
They do not communicate well. They're rather awkward. While they have a big name and a big title, and they like to do, the television interviews or whatever elevates their ego, they
Mm-hmm.
really don't communicate well one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real hallmark. They also assume that everyone is available and on call 24/7, no matter what.
Yep.
So if they have a great idea at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night, they text you and they expect a response.
Mm-hmm.
There are no boundaries, which is very typical narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the being on call, but certainly they just feel like you're their person, no matter what your title is or what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And they if you don't respond to them, whether it's a text or an email or a call, that just makes them spin out of control into a rage storm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had one boss. There was never a strategic plan. I don't know if you watch the Modern Family. It was, to me, such a great show. And Claire often says to Phil, what's the plan?
Uh-huh.
And my boss never had a plan. There was no strategic plan. He just pivoted. He reacted all the time.
Oh.
And what that caused is the company never is in the black, because when you pivot to something that you haven't researched, then it fails.
Uh-huh.
He blames everyone else and then pivots again.
Well, and you just named a key thing, that reacting versus
Yes.
responding or researching. It's reacting. And I know I've had a different episode where I talked about emotional intelligence, and I know you talk about that as well.
Yes.
But it's fascinating if you've got a leader who is constantly reacting or pivoting, like, ooh, new shiny object, new thing over here. It leaves you like, wait, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? What's going on? And then the second fold of getting blamed for something not working, it's like, oh my gosh, it's a no-win situation.
Yes. He this particular boss, first of all, very true narcissist in that whatever the idea, he takes the idea. If it's good, if it's bad, he's throwing somebody under the bus, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, for sure.
So we know that toxic bosses also focus on short-term optics. Mm-hmm. So whatever looks good, right? Let's clean it up. Don't look too close though, because it's far from good. But whatever it is, we wanted to make it look nice for today.
Yeah.
And then my other favorite characteristic is that they completely ignore turnovers. It's as if people are leaving the company in droves, but that's their problem. It can't be because of us, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
I love these. These are beautiful signs, and there's more examples I know we could come up with even on bigger platforms as well. Yeah. But for now, it's like, so now my ladies are like, oh my gosh, I think I'm working for somebody who's narcissistic. And like, we had said, if you can get out of that work environment and find a different position, then beautiful. And if you're unable to do that, what are some things, whether they're in management, a leader themselves, or working for somebody who is toxic, what are some things they can do in their current environment so that they don't lose their own confidence due to the gaslighting, due to them being thrown under the bus because that boss doesn't like how things worked out because, again, it wasn't researched or there was nothing to back it up? What can they do?
Well, first of all, just a couple quick things. First of all, you have to know this has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a big concept because we all take things so personally and it's so internal. Mm-hmm. Like for me, it was hard for me to separate the fact that there was something wrong with the boss, not with me.
Yeah.
And, I was delivering what I was supposed to deliver, and it was never enough.
Mm-hmm.
So during this time, I figured out that I had to change my perspective.
Yes.
I had to change how I saw the boss. I had to change how I saw my role.
Mm-hmm.
And I really had to make a conscious effort not to take those words and those actions personally.
Mm-hmm.
I really did my best to just focus on the task and do the best job you can on the task. Also, I found that, and this is difficult in some situations, but if you can avoid interacting with the person as much as possible,
Yes.
do so.
That's huge.
No.
Or
Yeah.
time limit it if there's any possibility, like, okay, I know I need to just follow up with this thing they've requested, but can I
Yes.
do it in like 10 minutes or under if at all possibility versus
Yes.
hours of spending time with them? Yeah.
Yes. And so it's, you have to be strategic about that, because obviously you don't want to be absent from necessary meetings,
Right.
or so on. But what you do need to know is, once you limit your time, like, I know my mood changed so dramatically. Like, when I wasn't with him, everything was rainbows and unicorns. And when I had to be with him, I knew it was for a finite period of time. So that allows you to focus on doing a better job, and hopefully it makes that person a little more tolerable for you. I've also found that changing your approach helps. Like, if we're experts in our area, whatever that may be, and I find that toxic bosses think they're always the smartest person in the room, and they're telling you each little step to take because they're micromanaging you. That's frustrating, because you know how to do your job.
Yep.
But you have to stop challenging them. They don't want you to challenge them. That goes for narcissists across the board. They don't like to be challenged. Mm-hmm. They see you as a problem. Mm-hmm. when you challenge them. I found that you need to stay on their script, whatever their script is. When you go off script, that's when you get into trouble.
Can you give an example of what that means? Like, when you say stay on their script?
Well, if you're telling them, our organization is so great at this, we do this well. Oh, that's on script. A positive is on script. Mm-hmm. Okay. Negative, challenges, off script. Why are you bringing up all the negatives? Why are you, pointing out, highlighting the things we've done wrong? Mm-hmm. We don't want to talk about that. We only want to talk about the good things.
Yeah. So
at least that was my experience. I can tell you with my father, you're on script if you're talking about him all day long. The minute you go into your own story, you've lost him. He's gone.
Yeah, it's like their eyes glaze over and they go somewhere else. You're like, okie dokie, I guess I'm done about what's going on in my life.
I mean, I'm an only child and I have 2 daughters. You would think that he would want to know what's happening with them and be involved in their lives. But when he gave me the silent treatment for 3 years, he didn't communicate with them at all.
Wow.
Very sad.
It is very sad. And again, it becomes an opportunity to share with your daughters of it. Again, it's not about you. And they really start to learn about what that looks like as they get older and into their own relationships and work environments, of just like, hey, it's really challenging for us humans not to take things personal, but as you raise your emotional intelligence, you really learn to detach. It's like, I'm doing a job. And again, all they're critiquing is just like, okay, it's about this thing. It's not about me. And I can only do the best that I can do. And that's it. But it's really recognizing, as again, like your girls are growing up, of just like, okay, I can tolerate this, or meaning I can put up with it, or I can say no go and I go somewhere else in my relationships, or I can set limits with those that are in my environment and see what happens then.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I
I feel like my daughters already have a PhD in narcissism, so
Yeah.
and
Well,
emotional intelligence.
yeah, but again, I think it's a beautiful thing because it changes the dynamic then, right? From generation to generation. When we have raised our awareness, our personal
Yeah,
awareness as an adult, and then to be able to raise that with our kids and to be able to share that with the younger generation, it just keeps up leveling our world, right?
right.
And being able to manage some of these things in life without, again, getting into those reactive modes. It's like, nope, I can respond to this. And again, not take it personal so I can
Yeah,
keep moving forward and living my life to the best of my ability as well.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's interesting. We talked a little bit about emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
You know, toxic bosses, narcissists in general, they have very low emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
I know you're an expert that when you have high emotional intelligence, you can regulate your own emotions and you can
Hmm.
understand and regulate and really interpret other people's emotions.
Right.
Narcissists have no desire.
Right. They don't. But, and they're really, one of the key things is, right, there's no empathy.
No,
Yeah.
they don't care about your emotions.
Hmm. Yep. It's just how do you support me and what I want? Yeah.
How can you advance my goals, my
Hmm.
missions? And so that's the key part of coping with a toxic boss is focus on making yourself a valued member of the organization.
Hmm.
I mean, that's the whole crux of it, right? Because if you're valued, even if they don't like you,
Yeah.
even if they want you gone, they see your value
Hmm.
and they leave you alone. Hopefully, be a trusted partner.
Yeah. Oh, fascinating though, right? I mean, that can be really hard if it goes against your values, if you feel like, oh my gosh, I think I'm just kind of playing a game.
Yes.
And again, to me, if you got to that space where you're just like, I know I need this job right now, and I've got my feelers out for a different job. It's just recognizing, okay, this is the part that you're in now. It doesn't mean it needs to be a forever, but like you said, it's like, oh, if I can keep honing my skills and,
Yes.
look like a valued part of the team, but if it feels like I'm out of integrity, that is part of why you're
Right.
looking for a different job.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, you do the best that you can with what situation you're in.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Lynn, I'm curious, what really helped you? You said you really, you worked on changing your perspective, which was kind of like that eye opener for you of like no longer taking it personal. What were some things that you did that really helped you shift that or even catch yourself if you started to take it personal? Like, yeah, nope, that's not on my side of what I call side of the fence or side of the lane. That's somebody else's stuff. What helped
Right.
you begin to really shift that?
I think discovering who my boss was,
Yeah.
similar to discovering who my father was, that's how you have to change your whole approach. Like you
Hmm.
see them for who they are.
Yep.
You see that they have they come from a place where they struggle with insecurity
Hmm.
and self-doubt. They have no great sense of self.
Hmm.
They don't have a lot of self-confidence. There's a lot of you know fake self-confidence that
Yes.
they espouse, right? That they
Yeah.
try and behave like they have that, but they don't. They're so insecure. And so I think for me, when you see that, you realize that you need to almost have sympathy for them, which
Hmm.
is hard because they don't make it easy to really feel bad for them because
Right.
they're not nice people.
Hmm.
But if you can rise above that and just know that, you know what, I'm working here until I can find something else.
Hmm.
And I'm just going to channel all my energy into the job. I think the organization has value, even though this boss does not. For me, I just had to really hone in on the work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
It's not
again, go
it's
ahead.
not comfortable though, I got to tell you.
Well, that's just it. I mean, it's not, but it really, I mean, it's being so intentional. Like, where am I putting my own thoughts?
Yes.
If I'm solely focused on like, okay, that's what they're telling me and I suck, and then it's like, okay, then I'm taking my own confidence level down. I have the ability to go, okay, this is their stuff and it's not mine to own. Here's what I can do, i.e. the work itself. And the rest of it, it's like, nope, let me put that back over on their side of the fence so that I'm not taking it to heart. Or if I do, I've got to do my own self-care practices to make sure I'm shaking that energy off at the end of the day or throughout the day. And I'm not letting it eat away at me from the inside out.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree completely.
Well, I'm going to shift just a quick little thing before I talk about kind of like where people can find you. And I want to hear a little more about your new book that you're writing. What are some of the self-care practices that you use when you have worked in situations like this with the toxic bosses, or even again, when you're dealing with your own dad? What are some of your own self-care practices that you do?
So first of all, for me, I need boundaries. I need to set them both professionally and personally. Um, I need to have that time away, both from my father and from work, in order to connect with myself and connect with my family.
Yeah.
I'm very blessed. I have a wonderful husband and two lovely daughters whom I want to, those are the three people I want to be with, as much as possible.
Yep.
I choose that over anything. And that helps me. That is like my Zen, my meditation.
Beautiful.
I love to walk and be outside. And I think that really clears your head. I think you have to find something, whether it's kickboxing or, some aerobic activity. I think that helps immensely to get your aggressions out. For me, when I was in my worst times with my father, though, I sought therapy because I needed to talk to someone objective. There were many times I thought, am I going crazy? Like, why is something wrong with me?
Yep.
And that helped me so much to know that it's not normal. And, so I really think for people, whether it's therapy or if it's just talking to someone who can be objective and who can listen, those are my favorite self-care practices for sure.
Well, and that thought, right? So many women who've been in domestic violence relationships, right, that I've worked with over the years too, in the trauma work that I do as well. They also, they talk about like there must be something wrong with me, and it's like no, that's called the gaslighting, right? It's the emotional abuse that happens. It's the psychological abuse, and when women have taken that on, and yes, men can be abused as well. So I'm not saying that it's just one. But it's like, man, it must be me. And it's like, nope. When you it's one thing to question your own actions, right? And like, how did I maybe impact that other person? But when that constant, like, what am I doing wrong? And what is this? And what I don't understand. Am I really crazy? And it's like, nope. That's the other person. And they're wanting you to really experience that because that leads them more in the power. And they get to they'll direct you wherever they want to if they believe they have you under their control.
It's awful.
It is awful. That absolutely is. Well, Lynn, I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing this with my listeners so that they start to understand like, okay, here's what it can look like in the workforce. And here's some ways that I can cope with, if I'm going to if I need to stay here for whatever reason, here's some things that I can do to take care of me. And all of that. And ladies, if you want to find Lynn's information, I'll have, again, her website and all of her social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. I'll have that on the show notes as well. But it's just her name. So it's Lynn, and then it's CATALANO.com. And Lynn, before we go, can you share just a little bit about what your book is? Are you like in the process of writing it, or is it in the editing stage? Where are you at with that? And what is going to be done?
I wish I was editing. I'm a little more than halfway through writing, and I have a great faith that it's going to be out later this year.
Oh wow!
Because I'm really working hard. I'm very energized. I've done interviews. I've spoken to a lot of people about their experiences. It's not a memoir. It is, there's parts of my story that are woven in, but I love that there are lots of people's stories in it to really talk about what's happening. Yeah. So the book is called Wrecking Ball Relationships: How to Identify, Live with, or Leave the Narcissist in Your Life.
Beautiful.
So that's how I felt. I felt like, for me, it was a wrecking ball in my brain.
Yeah.
You know, and I just, he would do such unbelievable things, but I cover all topics, narcissists in all forms, whether it's your parent or your sibling or your boss or your romantic relationship. I talk about gaslighting and the silent treatment, all the levels of emotional abuse.
Yep.
I talk about how do we raise narcissists? How are they created? Which I really found very interesting, because I see a lot of parallels to how my father was raised.
Interesting. Yeah.
So
it sounds like a great book. And I know when you do release it, you will let me know, and then I can update things and let people know as well that, hey, Lynn was on before and here's her book. It's now released. So
thank
beautiful.
you so much.
Yeah. Well, Lynn, I just want to say thank you so much for being on and sharing not only your personal experience, but the wisdom that you are offering so that other women don't need to suffer silently or think it is them. And that I have no doubt your book is going to be extremely helpful in whatever services that you end up offering as well for my listeners. So thank you so much for being on.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Thank you for listening. And if you're interested to find out what your inner power is as an animal, head over to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/quiz. Till next time.